What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So a little while ago, probably months ago actually at this point, I put up a poll on my YouTube and on my Instagram about which one of the products for this video you guys wanted me to use first, and the poll was actually pretty split down the middle, so I'm just going to pick one of these and go with it. So this video we're going to be doing a carbon cleaning on my Mini Cooper here. My Mini Cooper is a 2007 with about 150,000 miles on it now. I'm starting to experience a little bit of hesitation on acceleration, not really coming with anything more than no misfires or anything like that, just kind of like chugging at a certain RPM, and I think it's due to carbon buildup. I could be completely wrong, but this is something that we're going to try. First steps in this whole process is I'm going to remove the intake manifold, and I'm going to show you guys what my current valves look like. I'm going to do a quick walkthrough on taking the intake manifold off of this in case you want to do this for yourself to check if that's your problem. You could also just do this, you know, just because. Obviously these chemicals aren't too expensive, so you can do it if you want to. After I show you what the valves look like, I'm going to pick one of these guys, and we're going to start using it the way we're supposed to use it and follow the instructions. And you know, after we get done with one product, I'm gonna pull the intake manifold back off, see if it did anything to my carbon buildup. If it didn't, we're gonna put the intake manifold back on, and we're gonna try the other product. I'm really hoping that this goes the way I think it's gonna go, and the fact that these products don't really work all that well. There are a few other people online that have posted up videos about these things showing that they kind of work, but in my experience they really don't work all that well. So I'm hoping that I don't get proven wrong on the first one, because that kind of negates the point of using the second one. But anyways, I'm gonna get through taking this intake manifold off, showing you guys what the valves look like, and then we're gonna jump into doing this carbon clean service. All right, to start this process of getting this intake manifold off, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our air box off here in the back. So in order to do that, we have to unplug our plug connection for our mass airflow sensor. That is just a push down on this little tab here and pull that connector off. Next, we're going to take this clamp off. That's a screw clamp. Just unscrew that clamp with a flat blade screwdriver. Then you can pull this intake hose off of this box here. And then the other thing we have to take off is on the other side here, there is a T30 screw holding the air box down into the intake manifold. Once you get those that screw out and this hose off, this box should lift straight up. There is normally another thing in here that's holding the box in, but mine does not have it right now. There's a fresh air intake tube that comes around and comes over here and feeds in this corner of the car. It normally is locked into the other side of this air box here. It's not difficult to pull off. It just pops off. It has some little locking tabs in it that pop it off. So I'm going to get this rest of this stuff undone from here. I'm going to get this popped off. I'm going to show you the next few things that have to come off. All right, so now we got our air box off. We're going to work on getting the rest of things off so we can get our intake manifold removed. So the first thing we're going to do is this plug connection right here for this pressure sensor. There's just a locking tab on here that you're going to pick up and then push this sensor plug towards that side of the car, towards the passenger side of the car, and just pop it off of there. Next thing we have to work on getting off is this silencer box here. This has a Phillips screw right here holding it in. You're going to undo this Phillips screw, and then right here on this side of it, there's like a locating tab that like slots it in the intake manifold here. Once you undo the Phillips screw, you'll be able to pick this guy up and then push it towards the back of the car and kind of get it out of your way so it's not prohibiting you from getting this manifold off. And the other thing we have to do in order to get the intake manifold up enough that we can start doing other things is we have to get this fuel tank vent line right here off. So that vent line has a locking tab that holds it in place that has like a push connection here on the top of it. You have to push that push connection down and then slide that locking tab towards the back of the car, or sorry, that line towards the back of the car, and then really pop that line off of this vent valve. So that requires two hands to do, so I'm going to get that off and get the silencer off. And then after we get those off, we have a bunch of 13mm nuts. There's one right here underneath this part of the intake manifold right here. There's one there, and then the last one is right here where my finger is at. See the stud right here? So you're going to take all those off, and then we'll be able to pull our intake manifold away. And then there's probably going to be some things underneath there that are attached to the intake manifold. May or may not, depends on if yours has been off before. Maybe some lines and things secured to it. So we're going to get pulled off, and I'm going to show you anything that might have to come off once we get it off. All right, so I ended up having to take that whole intake tube over there out completely, just because it wasn't letting me get enough space back here to get the intake manifold off of the studs. One other thing that I completely forgot to tell you guys to take off, and I apologize, is the air intake tube here, the charge pipe where it goes into the throttle body. You're going to have to take this connection off here and then potentially take the other hose connection off on the bottom to get the intake manifold up and out. I'm going to work on this to try to figure out the best way to get it off, and I'll come back and explain that to you guys. All right, so I did end up taking this charge tube over here off. Like I said, this has a little clip here that clips into the body of this tube here. You pry that clip out towards the passenger side of the car, pull the tube up off here, and then there's a screw clamp here. Undo that screw clamp, pull that hose off. And then the other thing that I'm gonna take off, and I already undid it, is right down here. This guy right here, there's a screw clamp that holds this tube onto the throttle body. I unscrewed that, so I'm gonna pull that off here. I'm gonna pull this tube straight up through here. And then what you're gonna have to do is pull the intake manifold back and kind of pick up on it and start unplugging things from it. The throttle body's still gonna be plugged in, and I believe there's like another vacuum cylinder underneath here that's plugged in as well. So I'm gonna peel this back. I'm gonna get all the stuff unplugged. I'm gonna show you guys what was underneath there that had to be unplugged. All right, so we got our intake manifold out of there. One other thing I've realize you guys are going to have to take off is this vent line right here that has just these two squeeze tabs here. That vent line pulls off. That's this guy right here that wraps around. Once you get your intake manifold lifted up, our purge valve right here has a plug connection here that's got to come off. That is this guy right here. Again, just a locking connection that pries up away from the connector and then slides off. The other thing that's going to have to be unplugged is our throttle body. There's a plug connection here. That is this guy right here. That's going to have to come off. Again, same style connection. This tab right here pries away from the connector, and the connector slides off. And the other thing that you're going to have to take off down here is our vacuum solenoid that controls the wastegate itself. Or wastegate? Yes, wastegate. This guy over here, you don't have to undo the plug connection or any of the vacuum lines. Right here through the middle is a bracket that this mounts on, and that's this bracket right here on the bottom of the intake manifold. You can just push it off of that bracket and let it fall down like I did back there. Just out of your way. Make sure that you put it back up there when you're going to put things back together. So now that I got all this stuff off, I'm going to get the camera repositioned down in here so we can look at our carbon buildup on the back of our valves. All right, so looking at the carbon buildup, this is going to be cylinder number 1. There's carbon buildup. It's not the worst I've seen. I can definitely still see like the valve stem and things like that. I've had some where the valve stem's like completely coated in carbon. So not the worst I've seen, but obviously we still want to work on getting it cleaned up. This is going to be cylinder number 2 here. Again, not super bad. That one's a little better than the first one. Looking at cylinder 3 here. Again, not bad, but there's definitely some carbon buildup there. And then moving over to cylinder 4. Again, not super bad, but still carbon buildup there. So we're going to get this intake manifold thrown back on, and then we're going to run these carbon cleaning solutions through this. I'm going to do them one at a time. We're going to do one. I'm going to walk you guys through the process of doing it. Slow, you know, slightly, not getting too much crazy depth, but I'm going to walk you through doing it, showing you what it's about, and then we're going to pull the intake manifold off after each one, and we're going to show you guys what the valves look like after each one. And you know, this may end up being one of those situations where the first one I use does the best job or does a good enough job they don't have to move on to the next. And if that's the case, then that'll just be the one that I recommend to you guys. But, you know, we'll see what happens with the services. So I'm going to get this intake manifold thrown back on, and we're going to start doing our carbon cleaning. All right, so now that we've seen what the valves look like, obviously they're a little dirty, but they're not as bad as I thought they were going to be considering my problem, but we're going to give this a shot anyways. So the 2 products that I posted up, if you guys don't remember, are going to be either Seaphone Top Engine Cleaner or CRC Intake Valve and Turbo Cleaner. Now, I have used this product a few times on customers' cars at a previous job. I've had to go through a couple cans to get any kind of like noticeable results as far as how it feels. Mind you, those cars, I didn't actually pull the intake manifold off to inspect prior or afterwards. We attempted to do this to see if it fixed any problems that customers having. Same kind of issues where like chugging and, you know, rough acceleration, but no misfire set, no misfire is obvious. It just kind of like hesitates on acceleration. So in those cars in the past that I've done this with, running 2 cans of this through has actually fixed the problem. So it must have removed enough carbon in order to fix the problem, but I don't think it's going to remove all of it like it claims it's going to. So this product, in order to use this properly, you have to put this into the intake system just before the throttle body. while you're administering this product into the system, you need to maintain an engine RPM at 2,000 RPMs. So whether you have somebody helping you or you rig up some system in order to hold your throttle pedal down in order to hold the engine at 2,000 RPMs, it's up to you. In my instance, I'm gonna set it up to where it's holding the throttle pedal down, you know, while I actually do the service myself. I don't have help today. But you're gonna run this at 2,000 RPMs, spray this can into the intake system at 1 second intervals until the can is empty. And then after the can's empty, you're gonna rev the engine up 2 or 3 times up to 3,500 RPMs without exceeding 3,500 RPMs. I don't know how important that really is. And then you're gonna turn the engine off and let it heat soak for an hour. After it heat soaks for an hour, you're then gonna go start it back up and go drive it for 10 minutes at highway speeds. Mostly what they're trying to get you to do is just load the engine up and put some air flow through it in order to try to pull the carbon out that it broke up with the chemical. Those are the instructions for this guy, and the instructions for the Seafoam one are pretty much the same. So I'm gonna go get my engine set up. Again, first step of this process is gonna be get the engine warmed up. I've already done that in this situation. So now that my engine's warmed up, I'm gonna get my stuff set up to go hold my throttle pedal down, and I'm also going to get my intake cleaner set up. In my instance, I'm going to go into this intake tube here because my throttle body is directly down here. You just need to make sure that you're trying to go in your intake somewhere before the throttle body. Try to steer clear of the mass airflow sensor in your system, because if you spray it in the mass airflow sensor, it could damage it. So I'm going to get it set up over here. I'm going to get the throttle pedal set up, and I'm going to record going through the process of spraying that stuff into the engine. All right, so as you can see, spraying that fluid in there is pretty straightforward. I will tell you that I had my throttle set at like 2,000 RPM, and every time I was spraying the fluid in there, it was kind of bogging the engine down to the point that it almost stalled. So I went in there and bumped my engine RPM up to about 2,200 RPM, and it seemed to allow it to stay at a higher RPM every time I sprayed it in and not bog down so bad, and I was able to put the fluid in quicker. Obviously, if you're by yourself, you're going to have to mess with that a little bit. If you have somebody helping, it'll make it a little bit easier. But I did my fluid spray. I let it sit for an hour and soak, and then I fired it back up, went out to go drive it like the instructions say. And I will pre-warn you guys that it was very, very sluggish to drive for probably the first 10 minutes or so. It was not happy at all. Like, felt like I had, you know, no power at all, probably like half the power that I normally, probably less than half the power, probably about a quarter of the power that I normally do, and like would not accelerate through any gear. And then as I drove it, it got better and better and better, and after about 30 minutes of driving, it finally cleared up to the point that it felt kind of normal. Under hard acceleration, it's still kind of like sputtering and chugging and stuff like that. It's not setting any misfire faults. This again is kind of the same issue that I was having before, where it was like sputtering and chugging, but I couldn't see any misfires happening. It just like had this weird hesitation on acceleration. It's still doing that, but it feels like it's clearing up. So I think it's getting better. It might need more driving, so I'm going to show you guys what the valves look like, and then we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to look down in here. This is going to be cylinder 1. My valves look quite a bit better than they did before. Cylinder 2. This is going to be cylinder 3, and you can see on the left valve there on cylinder 3, it looks like it's still a little bit carboned up. And then that's cylinder 4. So if you remember from my pictures before, Cylinder 3, I think, was the worst one out of all of them before I started. You see there's still a little bit of carbon buildup, and like I said, it still feels like it's kind of chugging a little bit. So I think what needs to happen is it actually needs to be driven longer than the 10 minutes that they're saying on the can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back together, and I'm going to go drive around, beat on this thing, try to clear it out and get it to the point where it stops doing that little skipping thing, or get it to where it's as good as it was before, because it's definitely still a little bit worse than it was before. And then we'll come back and pull the intake manifold back off again and check and see if it got any better. And if it didn't, then we will move on to using our other chemical. Now this definitely did something. Again, like I've said before, like I said earlier in the video, I feel like when I was doing these before, was taking 2 cans in order to get it cleaned up, and that's kind of seeming what this is going to be like as well. But I'm going to put this back together and we're going to drive it and we'll see what happens. All right, so I went and drove the car for another hour, and I took the intake manifold off and took pictures. I'm going to put those in here. And as you can see, not a whole lot changed. It looks like it might have cleaned up a little bit more, but I want to try to kind of go through this whole process. I don't want to try it. The only other thing I can think to do is to drive it for like a week and recheck, but I really don't think that much is going to change in a week. So I didn't really record the process of me taking apart the intake manifold. I just took it apart and took pictures real quick, put it back together. I now have it set up to do my next service, which is going to be the Seafoam treatment, which theirs is a little different, pretty much the same thought process, but they're wanting you to, again, 2000 RPMs, maintain that. Putting this hose in here in the same spot we did the other one in, so it's going straight into the throttle body and the intake manifold. Although this one, they say that you can hold the spray nozzle down continuously, which means that it's probably has a little bit of like fuel or like starting fluid added into it to keep it from bogging the engine down real bad. And then this one, instead of hot soaking for an hour, it says to shut the engine off after the can's empty and let it hot soak for 10 minutes and then go drive it. So I'm going to get this set up. I'm going to run it through the same process that we did with the other can. I'm going to record that and just kind of time lapse over that real quick for you guys. And then we're going to go drive it, and I'm going to report back and tell you if I feel like it was any different. And then we'll pull off the intake manifold and inspect the valves again. All right, so I finished up with getting that Seafoam ran through there. I will tell you one thing that I experienced with the Seafoam is that it ended up setting a check engine light for system 2 rich off idle, bank 1. That's, like I said, or like I thought, was because that Seafoam's actually probably adding something to keep it from bogging down, so you can continuously spray it, some kind of like starting fluid or something like that, hydrocarbon based, to keep it the idle up, and that just sets a 2 rich fault, so you will most likely end up having something like that happen to you, and you'll have to clear the fault out of it. So I cleared fault out of it. I went and drove it, and I will tell you that after doing the Seafoam treatment on it, I was able to get the like surging, stuttering to go away almost immediately. Like first acceleration in the test drive, that was gone. I didn't have the 10 or 15 minute window where it was like bogging down real bad like I did with the other stuff. So it felt better after doing that, but it didn't seem to clean up too much. I took the intake manifold back off. I've already put it back together, but I did take the intake manifold back off, and I took some more pictures, which I will put right here. And it doesn't really look like a whole lot changed. It might be a little better. Maybe it cleared up some carbon inside the cylinder, like on top of the piston, that was causing my misfiring issue. I'm not 100% sure. All I know is that's gone. Now, what I will say is this might get a little bit better, that actual carbon buildup, because I've sprayed some stuff in there and kind of let it soak up in there. That might break up over time. I don't know. This is the first time doing this, so I don't really know. if anyone's really curious, I will make you know, I'll answer any questions anybody has down the road about whether or not this got better or made any difference that I could notice, other than just the surgeon gone. If you guys have any questions about doing this whole thing, please feel free to ask questions down below in the comments. I'll be sure to answer the questions when I have a chance to. I would really appreciate it if you guys would subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you later.